Hello, I'm Willow, an aspiring author, and welcome to Character Rants. Today I'm doing things a little differently than how I did with Anatolia. The script tripped me up a lot last time, and so today I'm going to split it into sections, put a few bullet points of what I need to talk about, and we'll go from there. So today I present to you Acheron. Acheron was severely mischaracterized when I had told my friends about him, to the point that my friends genuinely despised him. So with this, I want to kind of clear some things up. I'm not saying this as a you should totally forgive him because he's actually a cool, misunderstood guy. I just say this as a he's not pure evil. He has a smidge of nuance to him. But yeah, he still sucks. But like, my friend only recently realized that this character was abused, and I realized, oh, I characterized him wrong. So hopefully this will help me when writing the books to not mischaracterize him. So for the birth purpose, there's a few things. I needed an antagonist, and it's a trope I've always loved, that the father of the princess is the bad guy, the father of the protagonist. But I already had him made before the Book of the Poisoned Crown. Really, the Poisoned Crown is me just putting a lot of characters that were, like, miscellaneous, had no story, and kind of just smudging them together. So he was a pre-made villain when I decided he belonged to the book, and I've actually used him in a few other places, too. He's named after the river that's the entrance to the underworld in Greek mythology, called Acheron, but I found it hard to pronounce, so I put an R after the A, and now it's Acheron. His design is based off of OSP Hades as a nod back to the first William, who was the servant of Hades, because in this book, William is the servant of Belladonna, and Acheron's the one that bought him, though his personality is not inspired by Hades at all. And I'm not actually sure where his personality is inspired by exactly, because it's been ages since I made him, but I am almost 100% sure he is not an original character, because everything has a little bit of inspiration. But I'm not sure where his personality is inspired by exactly, because it's been ages, but I'm sure I got inspired by something. There's probably no way that I didn't get at least a little inspired. But yeah, doing this with Anatolia, I did key scenes because she's a minor character and doesn't really have a backstory. But Acheron does have a backstory, and I feel that it deserves its own section separate from scenes, because these aren't really scenes that happen in the book. It's just his backstory. It's just like things we learn over time. Acheron was a prince born under King Lucian and Queen Andrea in the Marvelon Kingdom. At the age of 15, he was forced into an arranged marriage with the princess of a neighboring kingdom named Cora. His father ruined the economy of the kingdom as well. When Acheron was younger, he also convinced himself that slaves weren't people in order to cope with how cruel his father was to slaves. This mindset stays with him the rest of his life, even long after his father dies. Acheron had a passive-aggressive relationship with his parents at best, and verbally abusive one at worst. His mother saw him as nothing more than a political tool to make her appear softer, and his father saw him as competition. So, in the end, they weren't really the closest. Acheron's mom died when he was 17, and he had very mixed feelings about this due to the fact that his parents were kinda bad, because, like, on one hand, if your mom dies, you're gonna be sad, but on the other, if your mom dies and she sucks, and hello, Oreo! Hi, kitty! Do you wanna join the character rant? Hello, kitty. You're so cute. despite marrying at 15, he didn't fall in love with his wife till about 3 years later when they were on an obligatory date. Something on the date, Cora did something, and Acheron, at that moment, genuinely fell in love with her. After that, the two started acting like an actual married couple. When he was 19, he and his wife took power over the country, and though his father still lived with him at the palace. A year after that, they became king and queen, and he was about 20 when their first children, Bellatrix and Belladonna, were born. Belladonna was born a few moments earlier, so she was chosen to be the heir to their throne. Acheron's dad dies 4 years later before the book starts, and that brings us to the end of his backstory. The tragic thing about Acheron is that he tries to break the cycle of abuse, but he simply doesn't have time for his children. He's dealing with a rebellion that started when his father was leader, and he also just doesn't know how to lead. No one ever taught him how to be a political leader. So he's making things up as he goes. He's juggling being a husband, a father, and a leader all at once, and he ends up failing at both parenting and leading. So in the end, he kind of just doesn't know what he's doing. The only truly important scene I can think of when it comes to Acheron is that time when William and Acheron are trapped in a shed during a storm. The most important part of this scene is that it shatters Acheron's delusions that slaves aren't people. He always coped with slavery his entire life by convincing himself that it's okay because they aren't human. But for William to act very, very human, it shatters that. He was never cruel to the slaves that weren't William, because he still isn't cruel. But he just, he didn't think of them as people. Like, William, he was openly cruel to, but that's just because William is a boy dating his daughter, and he doesn't like that. This scene is also where William shows emotions with Acheron. Before that, William was always, like, hidden around Acheron, kind of. Like, he tried as hard as he could not to have emotions around Acheron, because he didn't trust Acheron. And this is kind of, like, very jarring for Acheron, and he also shows intellect for the first time. There is a deleted part of this scene where Acheron gets mad at something, and then William flinches, and then Acheron, like, mutters, "I'm not aggressive," as well, which shows Acheron is ashamed of his cruelty. Like, he doesn't want to be a bad person, but he is a bad person. Section 4, where is he going? Where is his story going? Unfortunately, his story isn't getting a redemption arc. I don't see him as a misunderstood man. He is just someone who makes bad decisions and is too stubborn to apologize for them. He decided to ultimately choose leading and being a husband over being a father. He ultimately chose to be cruel and abusive towards this one kid because he happened to have a relationship with his daughter. He chose to be a bad leader. Like, while he didn't want to be, he still was, and he doesn't deserve a redemption arc, really. So for the outro, it just talks about if this method was better, and I think it was a little better. It gave me more freedom, but I still got tripped up, and I didn't know exactly what to talk about for each bullet point, so I just ended up following the script, and also my cat distracted me. I'm not sure if this worked any better, and also the editing's probably going to be really hard. But yeah, that's character rant on Acheron.